Testosterone didn't collapse overnight, and it doesn't come back overnight either. That's the lie most people are sold. Somewhere along the way, testosterone became framed as a magic switch you could flip with a pill, a powder, or a prescription, when in reality, it behaves more like a signal that responds to how you live, how you move, how you sleep, and how much stress your body is quietly carrying every single day. The uncomfortable truth is that your body is constantly deciding whether to invest energy into growth, strength, and drive, or whether it needs to stay in survival mode, conserving resources and keeping hormones suppressed. Testosterone rises when the body feels safe, capable, and challenged in the right ways, not when it's panicked, inflamed, or exhausted. Modern life is almost perfectly designed to suppress that signal. Long hours sitting, constant artificial light, fragmented sleep, low physical demand, and chronic psychological stress all tell your nervous system the same story. This is not the time to build. It's not a conspiracy, it's physiology. Testosterone is expensive to produce, and your body only commits to it when conditions are right. What makes this frustrating is that many men are doing nothing wrong by social standards, yet everything is wrong by biological ones. The solution isn't extreme, but it is consistent, and it requires understanding what actually tells your endocrine system to turn production back up. One of the strongest signals is resistance to gravity. Your body interprets heavy, compound movement as a message that strength matters. Not cardio for hours, not endless reps to exhaustion, but challenging loads that require coordination, focus, and effort. When large muscle groups are engaged under resistance, especially through movements like squats, presses, pulls, and carries, the hormonal response is systemic. It's not about isolating muscles. It's about demanding that your body adapt. Over time, this repeated signal can meaningfully shift baseline testosterone levels upward, especially in men who have been sedentary. The key is recovery. Training stimulates production, but rest allows it to materialize. Without recovery, the signal flips and testosterone drops again. Sleep is where most people unknowingly sabotage everything. Testosterone is largely produced during deep sleep, particularly in the early hours of the night. Shortened sleep, inconsistent schedules, and late-night screen exposure blunt this process dramatically. You can train perfectly and eat well, but if your sleep is fragmented, your hormone output will never reflect that effort. This isn't about perfection, but rhythm. Going to bed at roughly the same time, waking consistently, and protecting the first half of the night from light and stimulation restores the environment your brain needs to release the signals that drive testosterone production. Over weeks, not days, this alone can account for a surprising percentage of hormonal improvement. Sunlight plays a quieter but critical role. Natural light exposure early in the day anchors your circadian rhythm, which regulates hormone timing across the entire endocrine system. When that rhythm drifts, testosterone secretion becomes erratic. Sunlight also influences vitamin D status, which is strongly associated with healthy testosterone levels. This isn't about tanning or extremes, but regular direct daylight exposure without glass or screens filtering it out. A body that knows what time it is hormonally performs very differently than one living under artificial lighting from morning to midnight. Nutrition matters less in terms of specific foods and more in terms of adequacy and balance. Testosterone production requires energy, fats, and micronutrients, and chronic undereating sends the opposite signal. Extremely low-fat diets, aggressive calorie restriction, and constant dieting keep the body in a state where reproductive and anabolic hormones are deprioritized. This doesn't mean overeating or abandoning discipline. It means eating enough to support recovery and metabolic health. Protein supports muscle repair, fats support hormone synthesis, and carbohydrates help regulate cortisol, which competes directly with testosterone when elevated chronically. Stress is the silent suppressor most people underestimate. Cortisol and testosterone operate like opposing forces. Acute stress is not the enemy, but constant low-grade stress keeps cortisol elevated, just enough to blunt testosterone production over time. Psychological stress, financial anxiety, constant notifications, and the feeling of never being off all contribute. The body doesn't distinguish between physical threat and mental pressure. Practices that reduce baseline stress, whether through walking, breath control, focused work blocks, or simply protecting downtime, don't just improve mood, they directly improve the hormonal environment that allows testosterone to rise. Alcohol is another factor rarely addressed honestly. Even moderate, frequent drinking interferes with testosterone production and recovery. It disrupts sleep architecture, increases inflammation, and shifts liver metabolism in ways that reduce hormonal efficiency. This doesn't require complete abstinence to see improvement, but reducing frequency and quantity consistently often produces noticeable changes within weeks. The body is remarkably responsive when it's no longer processing toxins every night. Body composition also plays a role, particularly visceral fat. Fat tissue, especially around the abdomen, increases aromatization, the conversion of testosterone into estrogen. This creates a feedback loop where lower testosterone makes fat loss harder, and higher fat further suppresses testosterone. Breaking this cycle through gradual fat loss, not crash dieting, is one of the most reliable ways to restore hormonal balance. The goal is not extreme leanness, but metabolic health. One overlooked element is posture and movement throughout the day. Long hours collapsed forward, hips flexed, shoulders rounded, and breathing shallow keep the nervous system in a subtly defensive state. Standing upright, moving regularly, and breathing deeply are not motivational cliches. They alter neural input that influences hormonal output. The body reads posture as information. A body that moves confidently through space sends different signals than one that remains compressed and sedentary. Social factors matter more than people like to admit. Purpose, competition, progress, and agency all influence testosterone levels. Men engaged in meaningful work, physical challenges, or skill development often show higher baseline levels than those who feel stuck or disengaged. This isn't mystical. It's adaptive biology. Testosterone supports behaviors that increase capability and status within a group. When life lacks challenge or direction, the signal weakens. Over time, stacking these inputs compounds. No single habit creates a dramatic overnight change, but together they can shift baseline testosterone significantly, often into ranges associated with better energy, mood, and physical performance. That's where numbers like 28% come from, not from shortcuts, but from restoring the conditions under which the body is designed to function. The mistake is expecting a spike instead of a recalibration. What makes this approach powerful is that it doesn't rely on dependence. There's nothing to cycle, nothing to buy, nothing to quit later. You're not overriding your biology, you're cooperating with it. The result is slower, but it's stable. And stability is what actually feels good long term. If testosterone has been low, it's not a personal failure, it's feedback. The body is responding to the environment it's in. Change the environment consistently, and the body responds in kind. That's not motivational language. That's physiology playing out exactly as designed. The real upgrade isn't just higher numbers on a lab report. It's waking up with more energy, recovering faster, thinking more clearly, and feeling grounded in your own body again. There's also an uncomfortable conversation most people avoid, which is that testosterone is not just a physical hormone, but a behavioral amplifier. When levels improve, the changes often show up first in motivation, assertiveness, and willingness to take action, not just in the gym or the mirror. That can feel destabilizing if someone has spent years operating in a lower energy state. Suddenly having more drive can surface decisions you've been postponing, conversations you've avoided, or habits that no longer fit. This is why some men unconsciously resist the very changes that would improve their hormonal health. Testosterone doesn't just make you stronger, it makes it harder to ignore what isn't working. Another overlooked piece is how insulin sensitivity intersects with testosterone regulation. When blood sugar control is poor, the body stays in a state of metabolic stress that suppresses anabolic hormones. This doesn't require extreme dietary interventions to correct. Regular meals, balanced macronutrients, and consistent movement dramatically improve insulin sensitivity over time. Walking after meals, lifting weights several times a week, and avoiding constant snacking all send a message that energy is available and stable. When the body trusts that fuel is coming, it's more willing to invest in hormone production instead of hoarding resources. Hydration and mineral balance quietly shape endocrine function as well. Dehydration elevates stress hormones and reduces physical performance, while deficiencies in minerals like magnesium and zinc, often caused by chronic stress and poor sleep, can blunt testosterone synthesis. This isn't about supplementation as a shortcut, but about recognizing that modern diets and stress levels increase mineral loss. Whole foods, adequate hydration, and recovery allow the body to retain what it needs instead of constantly operating in deficit. Again, this doesn't create dramatic spikes, but it removes brakes that have been applied for years. There's also a timing component to physical stress that many people miss. Training hard late at night, stacking intense sessions without recovery, or combining heavy physical output with high psychological stress sends mixed signals. The body can handle stress, but it needs clear boundaries between effort and recovery. Testosterone rises when stress is acute and followed by rest, not when it's continuous. This is why people who feel busy but unproductive often struggle hormonally. Their systems never fully downshift. Creating clear on and off cycles, work, train, rest, restores the rhythm that hormone production depends on. Environmental inputs matter more than people realize. Endocrine-disrupting chemicals found in plastics, pesticides, and personal care products don't shut testosterone down overnight, but chronic exposure subtly interferes with signaling pathways. Simple changes like reducing plastic food containers, improving indoor air quality, and using basic hygiene products instead of heavily fragranced ones reduce background interference. These aren't dramatic interventions, but when stacked with lifestyle changes, they help create a cleaner hormonal signal overall. You're not adding something foreign, you're removing interference. And when interference is gone, the body does what it has always known how to do. That's the difference between chasing fixes and building foundations. One fades quickly. The other compounds quietly, year after year.